Hello and welcome to Reuse in LCR, an event coordinated by Liverpool City Region Circular Economy Club. What you're about to watch is the recording of the webinar that happened on the 4th of August 2021. It's a showcase of reuse best practice, which is intended to support the local reuse sector in Liverpool City Region to thrive. 3 of the 4 speakers are external. 3 of the 4 speakers are male, which we do recognise is not good enough. The other one is female. What you're about to see is 4 speakers make their presentation, and then a Q&A session. As you're watching a recording of this, you can't contribute to the Q&A, but just to let you know that the audience did. And we did have some audience questions, which I do ask the speakers. So without further ado, you're going to hear the words of David Greenfield from Tech Take Back. Thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoy.
Good morning, everybody. Thanks for the invitation to come and speak to you all today. Yes, Joe's given a small little introduction. I have far too many hats, and those of you that know me know that I end up doing a lot of different things. But today I'm here representing Tech Take Back. I'm the co-founder and managing director of Tech Take Back, and I'm going to take you through what we've done over the last 12 months from a reuse perspective. I'm also managing director of Sonex, which is research and innovation practice in circular economy, and we've just spent the last 3 years working on circular economy route maps across the UK, in particular Brighton and Hove, London and the West Midlands. And as Joe mentioned, I also run the Circular Economy Club in London and in Brighton, and I'm the European spokesperson, and I'm also the Vice President of the Circular Economy Institute, which is the new training arm of the Circular Economy Club. So that's the introductions over and done with. I'm going to be talking to you about a project that we've developed as Tech Take Back, which is called ReValue Electricals. So firstly, I want to talk to you about the organisation that is called Tech Take Back. So Sonex, Freegal, which all of you will know, Freegal, Brighton, Hove, and a small data erasure company started Tech Take Back in 2016 with a view to offering a safe place for residents to data erase their tech and give it a second life. The picture on the right hand side is of our first ever event in a little coffee shop in Brighton, and we got 20 people bringing 1/4 of a ton of old tech that we then data erased and donated some through to charities. Quite a lot of it was only fit for recycling, but that was the trigger. There was a lot of people that were really interested, and we got lots of people saying, "We love this service. Are you doing it again?" It needed quite a bit of organisation. It needed quite a bit of time. So we looked for future funding and ended up being very lucky to be able to receive a grant from the what was the WE Fund, but is now the ReValue Electricals Fund, to set up a series of pop-up shops over 18 months in Brighton and Hove. And that was in 2017. And those 7 pop-ups, we ended up collecting nearly 9 tons of laptops, mobile phones, tablets, etc., data erasing them in-house, and then finding community groups that we could actually donate them to. That led us to going, that's really good, but it's not impactful enough. And we were lucky enough to, again, this was all working with Brighton Hove City Council. We put in a bid to actually convert the pop-ups to a collection service. We won that bid as well, and that led us to creating what is now called ReValue Electricals. And I'm just going to play you a little video. I've got a feeling that I didn't actually press share sound, so it might get a nice little chirpy video. You might just get a very quiet video, but if you do get the noise, can somebody give me a little thumbs up on the speakers?
Yeah, Yeah, fine, really good.
So that's the ReValue Electrical services, and hopefully you'll have gathered from the video that we offer a doorstep collection using an app. We also have a web form, and just to give you an idea of the app, this is the functionality, and we do this with a third-party app developer called ZeroNet, who I've been working with for a number of years. And the functionality is very simple. It's to allow residents to be able to choose what items they don't want. So you can see the different categories. It's a bit like doing an Amazon shop, but in reverse. You choose what you want to donate to us. It then goes into the basket. You tell us how many items you've got. You then tell us what days you're available for a collection. Any issues with your property, difficult access, the like, whether you have any disabilities and can't lift items, for example. And then they request a collection, and then we actually go away, do some, we've got reverse logistics and route optimization software that allows us to then determine when we could go and pick it up. We then go and offer them a collection, tell them what date it is and what time it will be, gap of about 2 to 3 hours. And that will go through an email, an SMS, and also through the app. They then go back onto the app, confirm that they're happy with that offer, and then we go and pick it up from the doorstep. When we get to the doorstep, given that we launched this in November, right in the middle of COVID, we have been very COVID compliant. So you'll see on the picture here, we've got a box in the foreground. That is the box that we go to the resident's household with, put it in front of them, ask them to fill it up with the stuff they've got. The boxes are sized based on the number of items they've said. We then seal it, put it into our fully electric van, which you can see in the background, the white one. And then we take it down to our operations base. Now, that video works, hopefully. So very simply, and the reason why it's all boxed is because every single resident we collect from has a unique ID, and then every item that we collect from them has a unique ID. So we've got an audit trail from the doorstep all the way through to data erasure. And that's one of the key things, because we are playing with people's data. We have to have a very, very strict audit trail. Once it gets down to our operations base, you can see the boxes are stored. You can see the security tags. In COVID, we've been leaving them for 3 days, and then every single box is weighed, and then every single box is unpacked. Every item is weighed, and every item is entered into our asset management system. And that asset management system includes the make and model of the device, the serial number, and each item gets a unique barcode. This gives you an idea of the inside of the hub. That's the checking in area. We're then moving into the data erasure zone. So you'll see shelves with red stickers on. That's where there's items with active data. The amber yellow shelves are where the data erasure is currently occurring. So we can do up to about 25 different items at once. And then the green zone is once an item's been data erased and is ready for triage into reuse or into disassembly for recycling. So that's a little bit of a view inside. I would probably say that at this moment, that video was taken a good few months ago. I wouldn't be able to walk around the warehouse as quickly as I did there because we've got so much stuff in there. What we've spent a lot of time doing is trying to find end destinations that are really sensible. So we're working with a lot of charities to explore and to stop, digital exclusion. So we've got a Digital Brighton and Hove partner who is working with some vulnerable families, and we've been providing the laptops that we've collected from the residents to them, but we've also been collecting TVs, vacuum cleaners and kettles and getting them to their families as well. We work very closely with ReValue, so we have a tech takeaway. So there's a whole load of stuff that we get that really can't be reused for any of the charities. So we actually have run a tech takeaway, and loads of items just are given away for free to anybody who might find them useful. We've worked with a campaign called LevelUp Laptops, which is a B2B project, and that's led to us getting 160 laptops to school children in the city. We work with Brighton Hove City Council, who we work with their families team, and we provide refurbished devices to some of their vulnerable adults. And we're also working with a number of other homeless and refugee charities to get devices to those individuals. Since November, when we started the collections, up till June, and I say June because that was 2 months ago, so the stats are a little bit out of date, but it gives you an idea. We've collected by June over 13,000 devices. We're now up to around 22,000 devices from collections of over about 1,300 households. So we're going out twice, 3 times a week and collecting from an average 20 to 25 households a day. Reuse lessons learned. And I think this is where, from my perspective, having a number of different hats and having a number of different roles, one of the key things that we've done, and I've been talking partnerships at a local government level for 15 years. Partnerships is absolutely critical. Reuse cannot be done alone. It has to be done in partnership with a number of different organisations. You also have to understand the legislation. We are a reuse service. When a resident asks us to collect their items, there is a tick box that says they want us to reuse it, which means even though we're a waste carrier, we are not actually carrying waste. It only becomes waste when we have determined that it needs to go into the wee bin. Biggest challenge is funding. We've been very lucky. We got 2 quite good bids and won some money, but ongoing funding is absolutely challenging. We're currently, at the moment, we have 2 full-time employees. We are just taking on 3 Kickstart apprentices, and we've got 5 part-time employees. I have to pay them. That's the challenging bit. Storage. When we got our warehouse this time last year, actually, we thought, it's going to be massive. It's tiny. It's jam-packed with electronics. It's great. There's so much stuff in there, but these are all things that are really, really key. And the logistics side of things is really challenging sometimes because it's a constant. You're collecting stuff, you're processing stuff, you need to get stuff out the door. But I think probably one of the best lessons learned is that we've got the belief that we can actually do something good, and the feedback we get from residents and the feedback we get from people that have got donated devices is absolutely wonderful to see, and people really do appreciate what we do. And I'm just going to leave you this one picture. You can see on the right hand side we've got 3 pictures. I've just realized it hasn't actually got the title of the project there, but this is an example of our latest partnership. So we're working with Digital Brighton and Hove and Sisters Online, to create something called the Digi-Essentials package. So in many cases, just because somebody's digitally excluded doesn't mean they're just missing the laptop or the tablet. It means they're missing the internet connection. It means they have just been kicked out of their home and haven't got a Hoover, a TV, a DAB radio. So we've created a Digi-Essentials package which allows us to work with Digital Brighton Hove. They will provide a year's worth of internet access and an ambassador to help the person learn how to use the tech. We'll be providing a package of electrical items, including a laptop, a TV, a vacuum cleaner, a toaster, a kettle, all from the stuff that we collect from residents. And we've just started to go through a GoFundMe scheme to cover the costs of that. So I think that's me. That's probably over time, Joe, but there we are. Hopefully that's interesting and useful and gives you some food for thought and maybe some questions even.
I'd like to run over if it's as interesting as that. Thank you very much. The learnings at the end was really interesting. Who is I saw on one of the pictures there was a model making thing. Who's into the model making?
Oh, so that's our wee kid. So we one of our team is a graphic designer who graduated last year from Sussex University, and in one of our pop-ups, I found a mannequin outside a shop that was being thrown away, brought it into the pop-up and said to Jake, can you do something arty with this? And he created the wee kids using a couple of broken keyboards and some cables and a few monitors. So yeah, we're working a lot with quite a few artists as well to take the electrical stuff that we can't reuse and put into art projects.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned partnerships being so essential, the ones with Brighton and Hove, or whether it's with artists. How do these partnerships come about for you? Is that just your nature of going out and finding it, or is there networks in your region that are useful for that kind of thing?
A bit, all of the above. The Circular Economy Club has been really helpful because I've been running that in Brighton and Hove now for 5 years in different guises. And so we've got a very good relationship with the City Council. We've got a lot of relationships with organisations similar to that. So we've been lucky enough to get some really good comms. As a result of that, we've been on the TV 4 or 5 times over the last few years. We've got a lot of social media impact, and actually quite a few people actually approach us, which is lovely. And then we spend time looking to see what they need. And we're starting to now work with each of these charities, so we can actually build something bespoke for the people in need. So it's about understanding the quid pro quo. Partnerships, I've always said this, partnerships are about compromising to get an output for everybody that works. You can't go into a partnership thinking that everything that you want you're going to get. You might be lucky, but a partnership is very much about working together and understanding each other's perspective.
Between 9 to 5 and afterwards.
Yeah, indeed.
We've got a question from Stuart. He says, space is our biggest problem at the scrap store. How do you handle collections through app if your space is extremely limited? And I'll add to that and say, yeah, I mean, the app must provide even more materials, but that's, you know, by being better at collecting, you're putting yourself at jeopardy of having space. That's why we've got 4 or 5 people working down at our warehouse to actually process it. It's a bit just in time, but backwards. So we are always processing stuff. So we have got some very good storage down there. It's not a small space. It's 900 square foot. So it's a proper industrial unit. And yeah, we've got probably about 13,000 items down there at the moment. But you have to be on top of it all the time. It is very much around ensuring that we have the ability
to be able to process that amount. To the extent we actually had to take a pause on the collections over the summer just to do a bit of a stock take and just to sort out what we had. So if we had a bigger space, we'd still end up in a similar position. So it's about having those systems in place that allow you to actually ensure that everything's moving as quickly as possible through each of the different stations.
And you mentioned the app, and that was part of the reason why I wanted to get you to speak, because that's quite, it sounds strange to say, but quite innovative. It's a new thing to have an app that to identify more materials. You can worry about the problems that incurs later down the line. You want to have as much materials as possible. You want to be identifying as much for reuse. An app and a website seems like a good way to do that. Was that expensive? Did you, like, how did that come about? Is that something that is replicatable for other reuse services, do you think?
It's definitely replicable. It hasn't been cheap, but it hasn't been hundreds of thousands of pounds either. And ZeroNet is a company that's been working in the circular economy space for nearly a decade. They were one of the Ellen MacArthur Foundation 100 back in about 2013, 2014. So they've been developing this app over the last 6 or 7 years, and they did a trial up in Scotland with it, and we've essentially road tested it and tried to kill it in Brighton and Hove. And it's still got a lot of developments on it, but it's definitely replicable. It's getting to a point now where it's after the new upgrades should be in a much better place for both the user and for the back office. I think those of you that do collections, collecting from 1,200 households over a 6-month period doesn't sound a huge amount, but there's a huge amount of back office admin that sits behind that, and drawing down the data from the cloud and getting it into the new process. The interlink between the driver app, we have a driver app, so the driver knows exactly where to deliver, which is linked to the collection app. So there's a number of systems that sit behind this to make it as easy as possible for us as well.
Fantastic. There's some questions. There's some really good questions in the Q&A. If you could please you can type an answer to them, please, David, if you could.
Yes, certainly.
Thank you very much, David.
Thank you.
So, Morris, would you please speak from Share Oxford grant? There we go. Yeah, over to you.
So hello, everybody. My name is Morris. I am what I call myself project coordinator for Share Oxford, which is a library of things in Oxford. We also do repair cafes. I wanted to sort of say how I got to this, because it feels like it's significant how you kind of get to this point as well. So I, 20 years ago, my then partner took a job fundraising for the national, what do they call it? I don't know, something. Anyway, and they got part of their money from out of the waste stream, because waste companies have to donate money, to make the environment better because of the destruction that they're creating by digging holes and throwing stuff in it. And that got me thinking and interested in waste. And I kind of gradually got more and more into thinking about it. And at a certain point, I joined a car club and got rid of my car because I thought I didn't really need a car and could share. And then, about 4 years ago, I was retired. That's a deliberate bit of grammar, that they did retire me, and I was looking around for things to do, and I came across a young woman called Alexandra, who was running something called the Circular Collective here, and their model was to go around to people, and they didn't have fancy apps and things to do it, but somehow they found people, and they'd go with a bike trailer and go and collect things and then sort it out, and stuff would go to charity shops, and stuff would be repaired, and stuff would be put into recycling, and there was a certain amount that would just go into the waste stream. And the problem with that was it wasn't a scalable project. It depended on how many people and how many trailers they had to go around, and they were largely Alex's friends. And so the project not only didn't scale, but it also gradually withered as people moved away. So one of those people had heard about libraries of things. Alex thought, we need one of those in Oxford. And so she called a meeting, and anyway, I got involved in it, and she and I became joint project coordinators. And it's quite interesting, really, because we were, one of the things about it is that we were learning on the job. We were trying to find out what to do by doing it. We did visit a couple of other libraries of things in London and in Frome, from whom we took our name. Share Frome had the name Share first. It's now gone to others, and Bristol have taken it, and others as well. It was interesting working with Alex, because she's one of those people who divides everything into little tiny chunks, and I'm one of those people that kind of, you know, waves my hand in big pictures. So we found it quite interesting to try and work from those two different ends. And for example, her idea was that we should have all of the things from the library on display. So it was like a book library, and you go in and you choose your thing. And my idea was, well, you don't do that. You don't go in and say, oh, I fancy a hammer today, do you? I mean, you either want a hammer or you don't. So by having lots of those kind of conversations about how we organize things, not just practically, but conceptually, I suppose, we finally kind of came to something that works. And I've been asked lots of times now in the last few years how we've done it. And my answer is always, try it and see. You just have to do it with your demographics. You have to do it with the possibilities that you've got where you are in lots of different locations. So a village can have a community hall and they know everybody and they can organise it very differently than people in, you know, an area of Leeds, for example, where they're working in a big city and part of it, or in London where they're picking up bits and putting it all in the different councils. So it's very much dependent on your location and your demographics. And so pick up some of what David was saying earlier. I mean, some of the lessons really are that you have to be lucky, I suppose. And we were lucky in getting cheap space, because Oxford is a very expensive city, and finding space, we got not only affordable space, which was, you know, the only thing that made it possible, really, but also in a meanwhile building. So I don't know whether that means anything to people, but meanwhile spaces are spaces that are currently unoccupied, and that the owner or the person who manages it is prepared to let you have on a meanwhile basis. And then you leave when they want to do whatever they want to do with it. So we've got that, and that enabled us to collect some materials, which was the easy bit, really. As soon as the word got out, people offered us things. Everybody here must have things in their cupboards, under their stairs, in their lofts, in their sheds, whatever, that they don't really want and need and use. And so that's how we collected everything that we have. We have something over 650 items now. That's a choice to have as many things as possible. Other libraries of things choose to have a very narrow range of things. And there's lots of different reasons for choosing one or the other. And I'm happy to talk to people if they like about why you would do one or the other. Our idea is that partly we save as much as we can out of the waste stream, I suppose, that people might otherwise throw away, but put stuff to use. But also, you never know what people want. You know, somebody's got our glitter ball out at the moment, and there's a unicycle, and I mean, there's all sorts of unusual things that you wouldn't have thought of. And that kind of helps us, I think. We also think of ourselves as a community group, in the sense that we try to strike up relationships with people, and we want to have that as a major way of defining ourselves, differentiating ourselves from rental shops, for example, so that, you know, people come and they come in and they sit down and we say, you know, who are you? What are you doing? Why do you want this? And we engage them in a conversation, not just about borrowing that hammer or that drill or gazebo or whatever it is, but also about why we do it in the first place. It is about being useful. It is about keeping stuff out of the waste stream. It is about creating relationships, but it's also about changing behavior. So, you know, early on, I mean, I come from a much more intellectual background, shall we say, than this kind of very practical thing. So, you know, I like writing visions and strategies and things like that. And so, you know, we have a vision which is about changing people's behavior. So when you borrow that item, you don't just get the use of it, but you get a little dialogue with us, a conversation that says, you know, so don't go to Amazon, you know, these are the reasons why you can spread this out, and, you know, join a car club, share with your neighbors or whatever. So there's a lot of that vision stuff that goes on as well. I suppose the only other two things I want to talk about, because I don't want to run on too long, are in functional terms, we are all volunteers, and that is a major constraint. You know, funding, money, space, all of those practical things make it difficult, but the funding in particular, because we don't want to employ people and then not be able to continue the project because we can't continue to pay them. That is changing at the moment, and we're about to employ our first part-time person to take over from me as it happens. And so volunteers are really important to us, and it's been difficult maintaining the contact of volunteers with each other and us during the lockdown, of course. So another whole question, but I'm sure everybody has experienced something similar to that. And the last thing I wanted to say was, again, picking up on some of the things that David was saying, you know, we're a bit of an isolated project at the moment. I mean, it's not that we don't talk to and cooperate with other people. It's not that we don't see relationships with other people at all, but actually we do sit in our own little box, and it is very little. Oh, that's what I was going to do. I was going to share a picture with you, which I'll do while I go on talking. So that's what our office looks like. You can see it's fairly crowded. There's Alan, who's our chair and one of the volunteers, who's putting something on the inventory, I think, at that moment. And so we are hopefully moving into a bigger building under a larger Meanwhile project, with a scrap store, a refill outlet, and another waste saving thing through the council recycling centre, so-called, and we're hoping to have a zero waste superstore, which will be very exciting if it happens. I'm going to stop talking now, and I will happily answer questions if anybody has any.
Thank you very much. Not only questions, but I know that you've supported other share libraries to start and open. So we do have Liverpool Tool Library in guess where? Sefton, no, in Liverpool. They unfortunately weren't able to attend, but you've helped support other share libraries to start. If anyone on the call was interested, I'm assuming they're welcome to drop you an email, and you'd be happy to have a conversation with them.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, in fact, when we started, I think there were probably 8 or possibly 10 sharing libraries in the UK. I mean, there's now over 50. It's definitely it's a wave. It's a move. You know, it's something that is growing. I feel like we're riding a wave now, which is fantastic. And actually, it's been quite time-consuming, really, talking to people who are interested in setting libraries up all over the country. And so, myself and Chris in Edinburgh and somebody in Plymouth, we've held little webinars for groups of people to answer their questions collectively, rather than doing it, you know, one by one, and that process goes on. So yeah, but by all means, people are welcome to contact me or any of the other libraries, and they'll find a way into that network that is beginning to be slightly more organised and formalised.
There you go. Networks, they're important, aren't they?
They are.
And we've got our networking event after this, so if you haven't registered, please do so, and please do attend. You do charge for the renting of things. Is that you always charge for the borrowing, lending of things? For reuse, there's the Reuses Networks kind of price guide and weight guide, which is really useful for reusing things. Is there something similar for lending, a kind of price guide, or do you look at the other libraries and see what the going rate for a glitter ball is?
Everybody's got a different way of doing it. So some of the libraries charge an annual fee for which you can borrow anything, and others charge £1 to join, and then everything's got a separate price. And we don't charge anything to join, but everything's got a separate price depending on, it's like, say you can't charge as much for a hammer as you can for a carpet cleaner, for example. It's all a little bit, what's the right price, and it, different places and different organisations have different views on this. The only thing that we agreed early on, Alex and I, and we've stuck to it, Alex left some time ago, but is that things should be affordable, that people can come, and obviously there are some people who can't afford anything, and I know that, and you know, and sometimes I've lent things out, just lent them out, but it should be affordable, so that nobody should have to come and plead poverty. I mean, I think that's a demeaning thing, to have to come along and say, I'm poor, can I have it cheaper? So we want people to look at the price and think, yeah, that's reasonable, I can manage that.
That's kind of the beauty of sharing, is it? That it is an equal, there's a great equality to it. And you said having that communication with your community, and that's the only way that's really possible, isn't it? And you know, you said whether there's an annual subscription or a price per thing, you need to have that dialogue with the community. How easy was it to start the dialogue with the community in the first place? Did people just walk through the door, or did you kind of do an outreach?
So we were lucky with Share Oxford, because we inherited a load of people that Alex and her friends had got together, sort of a list of people, and on Facebook friends and so on, from their circular collective thing that they were doing beforehand. So we started with a bit of a base to go on with, and even a few £100, I have to say, which was very helpful. But no, you kind of, it's really difficult to know how it works. I mean, everybody we talk to says, oh, you need to do more publicity, and it's true, but I'm sure that there's very few organisations in Oxford that everybody knows about. There's always more to be done, and it's largely word of mouth is what it appears to be, that people pass it on to each other, and they put it on their, you know, street WhatsApp group, or they put it on their, you know, we've got fridge magnets nowadays, and people put them on their fridges, and their friends hopefully see them. And, you know, it's quite difficult to know how well you're doing as well, because people join the library and then they don't borrow anything. You kind of think, well, what's going on there? So, you know, we're new. We've been open as the library for 2.5 years, less, and some of that's been in lockdown. So, you know, I wouldn't want to rush to judgments about how well we're doing, but it seems to be accelerating in terms of the numbers of people that come, and the different places they come from in the city as well.
Sure, you're doing very well, and it certainly sounds like you are. Thank you very much for your presentation. There is one question from Nick. Sorry, Nick, it's not intentional that I haven't asked your question again. Please keep asking them. I'm sure Morris will would like the answer to be question live. And you've also got some positive feedback from Sarah from Changing Communities, which is great to hear. We'd like to hear positive feedback as well. So yeah, over to you, Petra. You can have Petra's from Fuss Wirral, uniform reuse, the only person from Liverpool City region on the call. But over to you, Petra. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. No problem at all. So I'm Petra. I work for Wirral Fuss and FUPS. It stands for Free Uniform for Secondary School and Free Uniform for Primary Schools. And our aim as an organisation is to supply really good quality second-hand free school uniform for reuse and recycling. We don't means test families, and we hope and we do reduce textile landfill. So the question is why on earth did we start this? And annual school uniforms are so expensive. So you're looking for over £337 for secondary pupils, £315 for primary school children. That's just one child in each family. And so that's an annual cost. As we all know, children, if we feed them properly, children go out of their uniforms before they outwear them. Gosh, they lose them, they damage them. How many boys have got holes in their trouser legs, and how many rugby tops have been lost? So our life, as we all know, it can affect the ability that we have to pay for uniforms. Hey, let's just think about the pandemic. Marriage breakdowns, redundancy, furlough, there's a new word. Anything at all can affect our ability to pay for basic things like school uniform. Affluent families are impacted just as easily as families on lower incomes. And there is this massive increasing awareness to look after our planet, to recycle stuff instead of just throwing it away. And that's coming through more and more and more. So we, our principles today continue as they started. I will go back to our history shortly. So as I say, uniform is supplied absolutely free. We don't ask questions about family circumstances. We do get people ringing up and saying, I'm on universal credit, or I've got a marriage breakdown and I'm, running out of money. But we just take that stigma away and say it's a recycling service. It was set up in St. Luke's Church as a demonstration of Christian love in action. And gosh, we have awe-inspiring stories of people in tears of gratitude. It is just amazing. Clients always respond. They take something away and the next week they'll bring something back that their child has grown out of. Sometimes I'll donate some money and sometimes they'll say, can I give you some time? So a history of the fuss and fups. It was started, as I say, in St. Luke's Church in Hoylake, originally looking after 5 secondary schools. And then the following year, Lower Bebington followed, looking after the 4 Bebington secondary schools. And in Morton, our first FUPS, our primary school hub, opened. And then following that, our West Wirral hub, which is also primary hub. In 2014, I had the pleasure of opening the Birkenhead hub. Like all the other hubs, it started off in a church hall, but we quickly moved into a unit in the shopping centre. We had that for free for 3 years, but we had to move every 6 weeks. So every 6 weeks we were pulling all our rails through the shopping centre and moving bags and bags of clothing. And luckily we don't need to do that any longer. But Birkenhead is the largest and the most fruitful of the hubs because literally the volume that comes in and goes out is massive. The Neston hub and the Wallasey hub opened in 2017. And in 2020, I was taken on as a part-time project coordinator to oversee our 7 hubs and to look to expand as well. So what I'm working on at the moment are new hubs in Ellesmere Port, in Bromborough. I'm hoping to stretch across the water to Liverpool, and who knows what else, because the concept is really, really easy to copy in areas, and all we need is a church hall and a few volunteers, and we'll get one set up. So we're going to look at some figures. Our first figures were looking at how many requests we had fulfilled. And this is basically how many families were asking for uniforms. So we started back in 2012 with 114 in our very first year. And then moving up through the years, but obviously I think everybody had a little dip in 2020. I don't really know what happened. So the 2018-19 was over 2,000 requests. And to date, we have supplied 10,077 requests. Actually, that is to the end of December last year. Since that time, we have been measuring our volume of donations received. When we were looking at funding, we were then asked, well, how much are you saving from landfill? And so those figures were only taken or only started in 2016. Which is why we've got that plus sign up there. So 19.29 tonnes as a very minimum, because we were looking at 4 years before that where we didn't actually measure or quantify the volume. We were just looking at how many families we were helping. Items given away, 43,727. So this is just stunning. The items that we give away can be blazers, shirts, polo shirts, trousers, skirts, pinafores, summer dresses. We also do PE kits and plimsolls and some trainers, some school shoes, coats and school bags. So literally anything a child can wear into school is donated to us, and we give it away. We have drawn a line at lunchboxes. I don't do lunchboxes. I completely refuse, because the amount of times that these lovely caretakers from a school say, "Oh, I've got all these lunchboxes," and they are still full of rotting apples and half-eaten sandwiches. So we don't do lunchboxes any longer at all. Who benefits from First and Pups? So at the moment, we literally just cover the peninsula. And we do receive more requests from people who are at more financial difficulty. However, in the last 18 months, we've really been pushing the recycle aspect instead of a poverty aspect. It's not just about not being able to afford, it's about recycling. And one thing that I've really tried to bring into the organisation is, years and years ago, on your street, if you remember this, you knew all your neighbours, and your parents, or your mother particularly, I'm sure, would know that Mrs. Smith at number 47's child was going to fit into the clothes that you were going to be growing out of, and Mrs. Jones at number 13 had clothes that you could then fit into, and a community was in a street. And now it isn't like that. So we are looking at this recycling process that started back in decades ago in England. And this is really, really what we're pushing today. So we are looking at being redistributive, and of all the schools that we receive clothes for, they can be donated into any one of our 7 hubs, and we would distribute them to the correct hub so that our clients do not have to be travelling too far. And again, that's not just a poverty issue, it's also an environmental issue. If we can get the clothes that are most relevant to their school in the area where they live, they're not travelling, which is so important. Any items of clothing which are deemed inadequate to wear are passed on to another recycler. So this can be something, and I've got a real thing with the schools at the moment where they're saying they have to have a full name embroidered on an outfit, on a PE kit, on a blazer. It can't be used, obviously, for data protection reasons. So it could be something with a hole in it, or something that cannot be repaired. Anything that cannot be reworn, we then send on to a further recycler, which is obviously ideal. And right, here's our lovely 2 girls from Birkenhead Park School. We have donation drums in 99% of secondary schools. I really wanted to get that to 100% before this conference, but I just couldn't manage it. 92% of primary schools. We also have donation drums in community centres, different community projects. And it's really, really important to us that all areas of the Wirral are involved. The 2 grammar schools which are next door to each other, one has a drum, one doesn't, but the parents all donate into the one drum. It's just so important that we provide a service where parents are able to donate easily. You know, to be able to collect a new size of uniform when your child has just had a growth spurt and you can't afford it, and then you bring back the clothing that they've grown out of, it's hugely empowering. It takes away a stigma as well, which again, for the families, they don't want to just take for free. They want to be able to give something back. This quote at the bottom is something I've received from a family who obviously were requesting uniform, and it says, you know, we can afford it, but we want to do our bit to reduce landfill. And that is really the attitude of so many of our families. It's not just about poverty, it's about recycling. So these are some of our recycled drums. I'm taking the pictures in the schools. As I say, 21 secondary schools throughout the Wirral and including Neston. 92% of the 97 primary and secondary schools. So in all, we've got around 80 donation points. All of our hubs, apart from Birkenhead, are based in church halls. I keep the online website and social media up to date. as much as physically possible. And parents and families can request the uniforms by going into one of the hubs, by phoning, by emailing, or on our website. We've actually got an online request form where they fill in their details. And throughout COVID, we've actually been delivering to the door. And now we're just starting to put in place a collection service again. And at the moment, we're working with around about 27 volunteers. Each hub is run by volunteers, and each hub runs in a certain way. As you know, everyone has their own way of working, and I try to manage our own little foibles and try to do that pretty well. This is our first shop in town. So it is an old clothing store. We have spotlights, we have proper hanging rails, and it is a walk-in shop where people can literally go over the threshold and say, can I have, and they can take it away for free. We have stories of, there's a soldier came in his uniform. He'd just come home from tour. He had 4 primary school children whose uniform had just changed to a blazer with a tartan skirt. He had 4 girls. This school was one of the most impoverished areas of Wirral, and he could not afford to clothe his children. But we managed to supply him with everything that he needed apart from the blazer, which meant that all that cost that he saved, he could put them towards the blazer. And this soldier in his uniform stood there in tears and said, I couldn't afford to clothe my family, but thank you for helping me. It is just an amazing, amazing service. We've also learned that connections with our community are so important. I did a lot of work in a previous job with ABCD, asset-based community development, and they show that as a community organisation, do what you do best and work with the other community organisations. So we do uniform, make it happen, do clothes and toys for children. Wirral Environmental obviously do your amazing recycling program. Wirral Change here, they look after the BAME group. So we have clients that we refer to each other. If people get donations in a uniform, they'll pass it on to us, as we will pass on clothes to them. Selwyn's coaches, for goodness sake, their lost property department, after their 6 months of quarantine, they go, well, what do we do? Oh, let's send it to Wirral Fuss, because all of those school bags and trainers and clothes and coats that are in there, we can then just pass on. It is amazing. SWD are the company that we work with when the clothes are not in a good enough state to wear, and they will recycle them on for us. Women's Refuge, obviously children come in over the weekend and need to go to a school the following day, and we're able to supply uniforms so those children don't feel left out or again stigmatized that they're not in the right clothes. So 2 little pictures. I've got a Wirral Grammar School girl and a little Riverside boy. All he wanted was a lighthouse like his big brother, and there he's got it. He's so chuffed about going to school. So in summary, in the past 4 years alone, which is when our figures have all combined, 43,000 items of clothing to over 10,000 families request Wirral-wide, and 19.3 tons we've saved from going to landfill. And our tubs are actually, all of our drums are made from recycled fibre, and they're made in Liverpool, so very handy. And I've gone over the time like everybody else, I'm sorry. Hope you found it interesting.
That's quite all right. It's, as I said before, it's okay to overrun if it's interesting, as it was. I've asked the previous 2 speakers something along these lines, so I'll ask if you could just stop sharing your screen. Should be at the top somewhere. There we go. Thanks. I've asked the other 2 speakers something similar, so I'll ask you how easy you've built these relationships with the schools. That's where the drums is, and like you said, you've got these kind of network with whether it's coaches or support services. How easy was it to build these networks, and how did you go about doing that?
Well, with the schools to start with, it was literally a meeting with them, explaining what we do and the positives of it. And a lot of schools actually do their own kind of recycling. That if a child comes in regularly without the proper uniform, they'll often have a store. But a lot of schools were finding that they didn't have the room to do this. They didn't have the staff to do it at all. So to be able to pass it on to an external organisation was a lot easier for them. But the principle of recycling was something that they'd already got on board with. So to have one of our drums there, it's nice and tidy. It doesn't take up too much room. The caretakers also love us because they, at the end of term, they just send us lost property. Oh, just come and take it away. So schools wasn't a problem at all. Convincing some of the community projects or the other organisations, it was mainly this, the ABCD thing, which is the nurture development logo that you saw there. And it is really something that the council brought in around about 6-7 years ago in Wirral. And it was the council were needing to save some money. So they were saying, well, let the community organisations run it instead. And so there was a lot of networking going on, finding out what other people do and finding out how we can interact with other organisations. And I was actually working for a different organisation at the time, but I still kept on with those networks. And so to explain to them, well, we can take all your uniform, save your shelf space, and we can put people in touch with you. If people come to us for uniforms, we can highlight what you do as well. So it is just really about working together and just working with our strengths and letting other people do their own strengths as well. Really, really important.
And one of your strengths is the fact that you are supported by the Methodist Church so consistently. What kind of opportunities does that provide? It's a slightly loaded question, I know, but
okay, yeah, no problem at all. It's one of those things that go, oh my gosh, they're supported by the church, they're going to indoctrinate us all. No,
I didn't mean in that sense. I meant just in terms of funding and having that constant supply of funding. Nothing, not about the church specifically.
Okay, well, the funding was originally for 2 years, as a circuit project to see how things would go. But now the district, which is say for in Anglican circuits, you've got the parish and then the diocese, which is like the area region. So the region are now supporting us for a further 3 years, and we are obviously looking for more funding to continue that. And we're recently getting on board with Regenda Housing. Now, Regenda, they realise as landlords that a lot of their tenants, if they're going to fall behind on rent, it'll be between July and September. And the cause of that is the cost of school uniform. So by coming on board with us and actually actively suggesting that their tenants come to us for free uniform would then help them to pay their rent on time. So Regenda have actually given us a small financial donation, and depending on how the first annual year goes, we may secure further funding for that as well. But it's something that we're looking at all the time. You know, funding is key, really, and it's allowing me to do my job and look to expand into new areas as well. Yeah,
it's like once you receive that first bit of funding and prove that it works and get over that hump, then you can kind of keep the ball rolling. But it's how to secure that first bit of funding, which may be some people's concern on the call. But we are limited on time, and Alan has been pushed back or delayed. But with the best things you have to wait for in life. Here we go. Alan, over to you, please, from Waste Savers.
Okay, no pressure then.
So thank you very much, Petra. Thank you, Petra, for a really interesting presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Petra. Okay, let me try and share the screen. Being very slow at the minute, I'm afraid.
Talk amongst yourselves. Well, hopefully our next CEC event will be live in person, and I can say that with sincerity whilst someone wrestles with technology. But yeah, it seemed premature to do an event live. as things are
But
currently.
the dreaded whirring circle at the minute.
There we are. You're on screen.
Okay, can everyone see a blank page at the minute? Okay, so my name is Alan Harries. I'm the charity manager of Waste Savers Travel Trust down in South Wales. We have several reuse shops and centres across South East Wales. So I'm just going to talk of how they've evolved. And hopefully there's some takeaways for most people here. So it depends on what your situation is, whether you're new to it, whether you're planning stuff, whether you're looking for growth, whether you're looking to deliver new projects. Hopefully you can take something away from this. So I'm just going to talk about these few things, guys. Our background, what makes it work, the opportunities. There's lots of slides to go through, ladies and gents. So I'm not going to insult your intelligence, read everything, but this is what we're going to be going through. And that picture on the right is our first ever reuse shop at a HWRC site, probably named Tip Shop. That was our first one. Our background. So it's been going for quite a while. Started off just collecting old newspapers from curbside, and has gone on to a full curbside operation with the local authority into our reuse projects. Operating across a variety of local authorities, currently 3, that'll go to 5 by the autumn, with 2 additional other projects coming on board. And whereas we started with just a HWRC reuse shop, we now have hybrid versions, and there's a push, certainly in Wales, to generate the high street through reuse as well. Also able to make us grow and ride through COVID. Although we're a charity, we operate as a social enterprise. So currently 95% of our income is self-generated. So, you know, we can bespoke what we want, we can develop what we want, without being too beholden to the funders. How it works, obviously the point of entry, people trying to throw things into landfill, we grab it at the point of disposal. So donations come to us. We haven't got apart from our reuse centre, which is our flagship operation, the donations come to us. We haven't got a collection logistics problem that comes to us. Lots of passing trade, gives us lots of donations, and there's quick turnaround. So that's where we get our sales from. It's quick in, it's on the shelf, it's there for 2 or 3 days, and it goes. As this has evolved over the last few years, we've identified some key elements that make the HWRC shops work. Parking, because consumers don't want to worry about parking, so ideally we should have 8 to 10 spaces. Size of the shop, ideally about 150 metres squared with an outdoor area as well. That's big enough to store a variety of items, take in a level of donations, but not too big that you end up just keeping stuff that will never shift. So that enhances the quick turnaround. Obviously, the donations is key, the amount of volume we get in, and they're assessed appropriately for reuse. So we do have an assessment guidelines that all the shops work to, what can and cannot be accepted in terms of quality, trading standards, and safety as well. Staff are key, obviously. Do they fit our triple bottom line approach, social, environmental, and economic elements? We do have some staff that have a retail background, but we have others from a variety of backgrounds. We've got an ex-teacher, we've got an ex-pub landlord, but it's about the culture and the fit, and they buy into that triple bottom line. Opening times, obviously, it needs, you know, lots and lots of thousands of people are coming back and forth HWRCs. So the majority of shops are open when the HWRC is open Monday through to Sunday. Volunteers, we have a managed program that's run by a volunteer manager. And again, because of our income is mostly self-generated, we can bespoke their programs. And currently, pre-COVID, we had 113 active volunteers across the projects. That's gone up to 85 now since restrictions have been lifted, and probably by the autumn we'll be back around the 100 mark in terms of volunteer opportunities. Relationship with host parties obviously key. The HWRCs run by local authorities or waste disposal companies, so that relationship is key. Not an S&M, it's a joint venture. And each shop or each project, we try to create a community-centred approach that's reflective of the community in terms of their culture, what they expect, and what we can give back to that community as well. Promotion, social media is massive. Again, that's around the community-centred approach as well. We get lots of followers. Our reuse centre in Newport was our flagship, currently has 6,500 followers. So it's pretty high and gets a lot of footfall and a lot of interest, and you have to be creative. Whereas posting videos, a little story around anything that engages the audience, not just promoting what's in or not in the shops. And if you walked into one of our HWRC shops, basically it's a car boot sale in one place, and it doesn't look that appealing, but behind it is, I'm going to blow out trumpet now, is quite a smooth operation in terms of how it's administrated, the quality of administration, and we do work to ISO standards. The 3 levels we work to there. So again, that gives us credibility with our partners as well, particularly on local authorities. So there's quite a big back to this operation. Partnership working, I know some of the presenters have already talked about this. It does work, and why it works is important. Full investment by everyone concerned in terms of the projects, co-design, not just use a building, use it. And if there's no co-design, then it becomes ineffective. I've had one bad experience with one local authority where they just gave us a facility and it didn't work because there was no inclusion. We have an abundance of experience in reuse retail, and it's all in-house. We haven't got to go out to anyone else to do it, and that's what appeals to the local authorities and the waste operatives for us, because we've got that knowledge and expertise in-house. And we talked about the relationship with the host parties, right from the top level to the bottom level, right from exec teams to the guys in the shops, liaising with the operatives on site in terms of donations and what cannot be accessed and collected. I say it's an easy concept, but delivering it as a single party is hard work. So this is one of the benefits of partnership working. Obviously, the local authority have the location and the funding, and we have the expertise and the personnel. Benefits of partnership working. This is just an example. We say we're a social enterprise, so we generate as much income as we can without relying too much on funding. Everything is shared. We operate an open book policy with our partners, and there's an example of one authority we work with. So that year, this one particular shop made a net profit of 68,000. So we share the cost. The local authority share the cost with us. They also share the profit. So that was it. 34,000 for us for reinvestment and 34,000 for the local authority. That's just one shop. I will say that's probably our top end shop. They're not all that high. And obviously the benefits to the local authorities, the landfill diversion figures. Again, the one shop, that was just one shop, nearly 3 tons. Nearly 300 kilograms. And it's increased community engagement because we do attract volunteers and creates employment in each shop as well. The opportunities beyond what we've got already, we do blow the trumpet, and every site should have a reuse shop, and therefore increasing the triple bottom line aspects. And for the local authorities, the reuse rates can go to the recycling rates. I'm not too sure what the targets are in England, but the target is by 2025 to all authorities in Wales have to have a 70% recycling rate. It's not far off that now, but this is all part of that success. As I said before, it's easy to duplicate in partnership across multiple sites. For example, Rhondda and Taff, one of the authorities in South Wales, we tendered for the first shop. Done very well with it. I know we've got another shop with them and a third one due to open in the autumn as well. So it's just replicating that model. And as the figures I've seen, it's very sustainable as well. It's done the right way. It's quite simple. Challenges though, it's not all bed of roses. A lot of older HWRCs struggle for space. So you have to be inventive where the shops are put and reconfiguration of routes, for example. Residents come into the shop, not quite sure what's the difference between reusable and what actually classifies as waste. It is a just different culture to a retail operation. Again, we've got the infrastructure, but that has to be right. If the IT goes down or the financial reporting goes down, it does cause headaches. Because it's high level turnover of small, low cost items, there's a lot of cash involved. It's away from the high street, so there are some light-fingered temptations, but fortunately, we very, very rarely have an issue on that. As I've referenced, the partnership with Rhondda and Taff, you deliver one good project and they expect the next one to be just as good. So repeating success is a challenge as well as an opportunity. And this is the biggest one for everybody, irrespective of whether you're running a real shop or selling tiddlywinks. COVID-19 bounce back, particularly in terms of well-being, is a challenge. And it does affect our income as well. We've been fortunate, like most organisations, through the furlough project, funding, rates relief, and the reserves from the previous successful year has got us through, but it's still a challenge, bouncing back. And we expecting that to be 3, possibly 5 years before we get back to where we were in terms of income. But it's all planned for, it's all budgeted for. Future, what's going to happen? We try to stay ahead of the curve. It's not just what you've done in the past successful, therefore it'll always be successful. We always looking to add or reinvent, or maybe even just do more what we're good at. So with Insight, this is Newport Tip Shop. This is what it originally was. It was just a shipping container with a large gazebo with what I would best describe as higgledy-piggledy parking. So it's evolved. In collaboration with the local authority, we moved it to the entrance of the HWRC, so residents could go to the shop before they went to the ramps, increase the parking space, and now have 2 containers there instead of the one. And the income and the footfall has gone up since that was done about 15 months ago. New sites, Rhondda and Taff. So based on this, again, this is collaboration in design. So we said, this is the footfall, this is the model we want. So that was provided. So Tree Herbert has been open about just over 2 years and is doing very well and is bouncing back from COVID quite well. Rose Hayworth in Blaenau Gwent, which is North Gwent Valleys. That's a brand new HWRC. It's obviously part of the delivery for Welsh Government that was to have a reuse shop on there as well. So again, we were part of the design. We had a tender for the business. Being part of the design team, had a foot in the door already. And the same with Lambie Way, which is a massive site in Cardiff. As you can see from our picture, it's almost finished. And we're due to open that at the end of August. But again, it's all in collaboration. And these are our new sites that come on board or coming on board. Again, using the same model, the same operational model, the same financial model, because it does work. The high street, I said earlier, there's a big push for Welsh Government to regenerate high street through reuse operations. So this picture here is an old cooperative store that Co-op offloaded to us. So that's been refurbished. It's just finished refurbishment. The shop actually opened last week. So it's on the high street, one of the high streets in Newport, to increase footfall and part of the regeneration of the local community. And this is what we look at, what it gives us. You know, is a much larger footprint. We have a large IT provision in terms of working with schools, contracts with local authorities in terms of collecting their old IT equipment, and Office of National Statistics. So again, that goes out to the community, either as donations or low cost. Again, working around the digital inclusion program. This is our only project currently that has a delivery and collection service because it's high street. This is all part of the government's drive to occupy empty units on the high street. So we're part of that at the moment. And looking forward, whereas we started in Newport, it was just that shipping container and a large gazebo. As you can see, we've evolved, and it's what the expectations are of the future, again, around the whole waste hierarchy. So it's not just a shop, it becomes a project, it becomes part of the community. For example, the Rose Hayworth site in Blaenau Gwent, that's actually going to have an education room or classroom on site as well. So we're part of that delivery, working with local schools. We've worked with a couple of local schools in setting up their eco groups. And we're looking to tie into the Welsh Baccalaureate qualification because part of that is enterprise. So we can tie that up with the schools and the reuse shop. And overall, it's given everyone a wider appreciation of the waste hierarchy. Because I know I said most of our income is self-generated. There are opportunities through Welsh Government to tap into landfill diversion tax scheme funds, circular economy waste funds, and the biggest thing is promoting the waste hierarchy and reuse products. So we're always in a position to bid to that if we need it, or we can expand our offer. That's it. A whistle stop. There's a lot in there. Thanks for listening, and my contact details in there if anyone wants a further discussion or a further conversation.
Thank you very much for a very interesting presentation. Just trying to get my video to work. The technical difficulties are always a barrier. There you go. I should be have the displeasure of seeing me. We've got a few questions popping up, but just quickly, you've mentioned the Welsh. If you could stop sharing your screen, please, that'd be great.
Sorry.
You mentioned the benefits of the Welsh Government. How the Welsh Government have obviously supported you a lot and enabled you to grow. How I'm conscious that some of the people asking questions, some of the people on this call do very similar things in terms of reuse shops. How much have you benefited from the support the Welsh Government's given you, and what specific legislation do you think's enabled you to do that?
Well, firstly, reuse and recycling is very much high up on the Welsh Government agenda. There's not many things in Wales we're best of the world at, but we're third highest recycling rates in the world. And the Welsh Government are keen to push that agenda through and continue it. The Future Generations Act in Wales is a big part of that. So there is policy in place that needs to adhere to it. Our relocation of our reuse centre on the High Street in Newport, we've had a significant funding benefit of that from Welsh Government. Indirectly, the local authorities, the more they do around reuse and recycling, the more funding they get. So obviously that funding then channels its way into us, and other organisations in Wales to setting up reuse shops at the HWRCs. So there's direct and there's indirect benefits financially in terms of setting it up. But that's just setting it up, and there is a lot of money, but making it sustainable and long lasting is our responsibility, hence why we generate the income, or try to generate the income.
And it's balancing the grandstand also being commercially viable, and kind of it's something we've spoken about when you and I have spoken, just two of us, just being commercially minded. Nick Thompson's asked, is Waste Savers a social enterprise, a charity, a CIC, or what? And it kind of leads on exactly from that.
I like the old what bit, Nick. Right, so we're a registered charity, but we operate, and our mindset is a social enterprise, because we are foremost is generating our income, which is hence the social enterprise approach. but we're not too precious. We're in the charity hat, does have its benefits as well.
And Nick has also asked, is your main partner the local authority? In Merseyside, Mayors have 2 reuse shops, at Booth and Old Swan, but our dealings, Mayors' dealings are with the contractor Veolia.
Right, so currently all our partnerships are with the direct local authority. We have a new shop opening in a borough called Torvine, which is north-east Gwent, near Monmouthshire. They actually operate through FCC, so our agreement is going to be with FCC. We did try to operate with a third waste partner in another authority, but it didn't work just because it was different cultures, and say we worked a triple bottom line, they would just work into one bottom line, and it didn't work. So we pulled out of that. Yeah,
it's about the contract. It's all got to kind of work together as one, isn't it? But if
it's the stakeholder investment has to be a lot of commonalities and a lot of shared outcomes.
Yeah, and our last question today is that's such a quick turnaround on the shelves. What do you need to make your stock move so fast? And just before you answer, we'll say that those 10 points that you shared on screen are from your learnings as what covers the whole of the country, Wales, with the best recycling and reuse rates in the world.
Yeah.
But, and you've identified those 10 key success factors. So is that what is needed to make the stock move so fast?
Yeah, it's all part of it. So it's easy access, it's easy drop off, social media, it's creating that culture, and reflecting the community. For example, our shop in Llantrisant, although it's around the kind of Taff, which is quite high up on multiple deprivation figures, it's right at the south of the borough, and it backs onto the Vale of Glamorgan, which is an affluent area. So the quality, the amount of donations is different. So that hence the clientele is a slightly different socioeconomic group. In Newport, it's different. Get a lot of traders in there who'll come in and buy stuff and then go to car boots, eBay. We have no issues with that because that's supporting the local economy. So the different communities that have a different culture. So as long as the shop can serve that community, that's part of the success as well. So those 10 things, most of them have to be working fairly well. You could have the best shop in the world. If you can't get access to it and the customers can't park, they're not going to come.
And if you don't create a shop that is in response to what the community wants and what the community needs, which leads on to, I guess, the theme of the day, hopefully is partnership working and being responsive to your environment and working with the assets you've got. Thank you very much, Alan. Thank you for your presentation. I'm going to start to wind down. Thank you very much to our 4 fantastic speakers. Obviously, people have had to drop off as everyone's busy. Thank you to everyone who stayed, and yeah, we hope that if you can share the recording of this when it's put on YouTube, I'll share it to all of you guys because you've registered. Please continue to share. We want this to be a showcase of best practice, and we want the reuse sector in LCR in Liverpool City region to thrive, and we're trying our best, so we hope you are too. Thanks to Danny, who's been working away in the background to keep things rolling, my colleague. If you'd like to get in touch with Liverpool City Region Circular Economy Club to collaborate for future events or to pick up continue the momentum of this in supporting the reuse sector in the region to thrive, please do get in touch. You've received emails from us, so yeah, please do so. So I'll end with a massive thanks to our 4 fantastic speakers, and if you haven't registered for the networking event this afternoon and would like to attend, please make sure you do register for 3 o'clock. The links have all been sent to you, so just look through your emails and you'll find them. Thank you very much. Yeah, and we look forward to seeing you this afternoon. Thank you.